Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Adrian here for Digital Dojos, and year after year, I have covered Apple's iPhone events. I've covered WWDC for nearly a decade now, and without fail, this year I had just got done viewing the live stream, getting my post up, and I want to give my thoughts on everything that was announced at today's Apple. I guess you can call it iPhone 8, iPhone 10, or X event. So if you just want to run down a basic rundown of everything that got announced, you can check out my post down below, just a very simplified list. Otherwise, if you want to hear my thoughts and opinions on everything, then you're at the right place. Let's start off with what was first announced. That was the Apple Watch Series 3. I was an owner of the Series 1. I skipped the Series 2, but what the Series 3 is essentially the Series 2 watch, and I mean that in like the form factor and the design because it's exactly the same, with the exception of the cellular or LTE edition. Series 3 is getting what's called an eSIM, an electronic SIM, I believe, integrated within the Apple Watch, so it's not like an external SIM that you have to put in like you do with the phone. You connect that to your carrier, I'm assuming, and I'm guessing that's going to piggyback off your existing carrier if you have an iPhone. And you can obviously use your watch wherever you go. No need for your iPhone anymore. You can make calls, receive texts. You can stream music from Apple Music, all from the Apple Watch. Now, this is a big step because I think of a smartwatch when I got the first Apple Watch. And I'm a huge fan of watches in general, but when I think smartwatch, when I think digital, I think of something that is independent on its own. I don't think of something that has to be necessarily tethered to the phone at all times. And it is nice to be able to now be able to leave your phone and still be able to get those notifications and do a lot of things from your watch, whether that's running and listening to music, whether that's just leaving your phone behind and still being able to get phone calls or notifications. I can see that being a huge plus. So this is the Series 2, and they're actually discontinuing the Series 2. It's like the shortest shelf life for a product I've seen in a while for Apple. And they're just going to be selling the Series 1 and the Series 3. So if you've ever been looking to get an Apple Watch, I think now's the time. I don't think everybody necessarily is going to need the LTE, but it is nice that it's there, and I can see that definitely being useful for people. And that's coming in at a baseline of $300 depending, or sorry, $399, $400 depending on the model you get with the band and stuff like that. It obviously escalates from there. But yeah, that's the Apple Watch Series 3. Much needed update, and nice to see the LTE being integrated. Next, and again, a very pretty straightforward one, Apple TV, the Apple TV set-top box, which actually when it came out was one of my favorite products Apple did in a while. I love the design. I was actually personally a fan of the remote. I know a lot of people had issues with it, but it was just all around a great design from hardware to software, and now it's finally getting the 4K upgrade. So the 4K content, it's 4 times the resolution of 1080p. They've been selling 4K TVs now for a while, so now you have the set-top box to match that. If you're an Apple, if you use an Apple ecosystem by any means, especially things like iTunes, then the Apple TV is a great set-top box to have. And now with the 4K content, you can get 4K content through iTunes. If you've bought content in the past through iTunes, that's going to get 4K upgrade. You get that for free. That's a really nice touch. Netflix, Amazon Video, that's coming to the Apple or tvOS, will also have its 4K content streamable via the set-top box. That starts at $180 for 32 gigs. 64 gigs will be $200. And the storage options there are because you can get tvOS apps now. So the apps allow you to like play games or have little fun utilities or entertainment on your Apple TV, and that's why the storage comes into play. Now, this is all powered by the A10X processor, which is the same exact processor in the iPad Pro, which is a super powerful processor, which is needed, of course, for the 4K content, but moreover, makes for better gaming and stuff like that. And I know that sounds gimmicky, like gaming on a TV set-top box, but actually, I've been really surprised with what tvOS has been able to pump out and developers have been able to offer. And I think it's a really cool thing to have these apps in mix with your entertainment, the device in general. It makes more sense, and that's where a lot of these set-top boxes are eventually going, to be honest. All right, so yeah, Apple TV, nice update. I do wish there was a little bit more. Honestly, it was just like 4K content, great new processor. I wish maybe a little bit more touch-up to the remote design, or even haptic feedback on the remote. Who knows? Anything, a nice additional touch to the overall hardware of it would have been nice, but we didn't get that this time around. But with that, let's move into the bulk of what the event was about, and that was iPhones. This event was obviously focused and centered on iPhones, and we got 3 of them. First and foremost, we got the, I guess, first 2, we got the iPhone 8 and the 8 Plus. Think of it this way. This is essentially, I think, what should have been the iPhone 7S. I have the 7 Plus personally. This should have been the 7S, to be honest. They're calling it the iPhone 8, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, why that matters. But what you're getting here is the same form factor of the 7 and 7 Plus, but you're getting a full glass body, so the back is now glass. The frame around it is now steel, so that's reinforced steel. And, the glass is durable glass, and they're saying it's stronger, better, faster, whatever. But in reality, it's still glass, so gravity can obviously still play a big role in breaking that. But the reason they had to go to glass is because of the new integration of wireless charging. So wireless charging is now supported on the iPhones, which is a nice touch. They also support the Qi standard, which is like a lot of third-party wireless pads out there that you can buy if you don't want to go through Apple's. Offer, they support that essentially. So wireless charging, glass back, improved internals. Of course, you're going to get a faster phone. I mean, they're not going to give you a slower phone or on par. It's powered by the A11 Bionic chip, which is, better graphics performance, better CPU performance. So that just means all around better things in terms of like performance with the phone and the OS, with the apps and games. You even get improved things like for the camera, for example, you now have 4K video recording in 60 frames per second. Finally, I'm a huge fan of that as somebody who uses my phone for a primary camera. And just like, overall performance for the software, it's going to integrate obviously with iOS 11 and take advantage of those new features. So the 8 will still have Touch ID. It's still going to have that home button at the bottom. It's still going to be that same physical design with the exception of the glass. And it's going to be starting at, I want to say, what is it, $799 and then $899 are the base models, if I'm not mistaken. And you get these new colors, or the new gold. You have the space gray, and I believe the silver edition. And so yeah, starting at $700 and $800 for the price point. But that's not the real focus. I mean, yes, it's a nice upgrade. It's a nice jump. But Apple, went from saying like, here's our new phone, to 5 minutes later being like, but here's the one that really everybody's going to want and that matters and that's way better and nicer. It's the first time I've seen them really kind of just, release a decent product and then all of a sudden be like, but that's relevant. Check out this one. This is the iPhone 10, or I keep on saying iPhone X, just the same way, OS X, OS 10. This is obviously the future of what the iPhone is, and more forward thinking, especially on Apple's part. Not to say that this is anything new by any means. Android has been doing this for a while. I have my S7 Edge here, and this is an all immersive edge-to-edge display. You can see there's no more Touch ID. There's no home button. That's going to be replaced with something that's called Face ID, which will use the camera and sensors at the top in conjunction with things like an IR camera to unlock your phone by facial recognition. Again, nothing new, but they claim this is much more secure than Touch ID. They say it's fast. It did fail in the demo one time, but other than that, it looked like it worked decently well. But yeah, you're getting a full 5.8 inch edge-to-edge display. That's OLED display, so the colors are really going to be vibrant and pop. It's a super retina display is what they're calling it. And it's all screen. I mean, that's the big focus here, right? You're getting this full screen experience, which means the way you interact with the phone is going to be a little bit different. It's no longer like, obviously it's not Touch ID, but even to exit apps, to get out of apps, you have to either like swipe up, tap on the screen to wake it. You have like the gestures like the long press and things like that. So it is going to take a little bit of getting used to if you're going to go with the iPhone 10. But, without that Touch ID and that bottom chin of the iPhone, you get a full screen experience. And the way you can think of it from a design perspective is the iPhone 10 is the same form factor and size physically as an iPhone 7 or iPhone 8. But it's the same screen size as a Plus edition, because this is a Plus, for example. So it's not going to be as big as this. It's going to be a little bit smaller, but you're getting the same exact screen size because, again, you're eliminating this bottom and top lip and just getting all screen there. The internals are also powered by the A11 Bionic chip, so it's faster, performs better, all that good stuff. It has a glass back for wireless charging. But the bigger difference here with like that True Tone camera in the front facing for facial recognition, stuff like that laws you to do a little bit different things on the iPhone 10. You have the Face ID, like I mentioned. You also have things like you can do like portrait mode with this selfie with the portrait mode here, and take advantage of some of the new software things that they're doing, like portrait lighting and stuff like that. And if you really care, an emoji, which is a highlight feature that they actually spent a part of the demo showcasing here. But yeah, it's great technology, right? And the main difference also on the back, you have that 12 megapixel camera, but it's now vertical rather than horizontal. And I think it has like better OIS, or optical image stabilization, and things of that nature. But really here, you're just seeing increased internals and a full screen experience. I mean, that's obviously the big thing here. But when it comes down to it, you think of it this way: you're paying $200 more if you look at the baseline iPhone 8 Plus at $800. You're paying $200 more because that's the baseline, $1,000 for a phone. I know that sounds crazy, but also at the same time, when you think of how often we use our phones, maybe it's not too wild. $1,000, $200 more for a bigger screen, a better screen, and slightly, and I mean slightly better internals. It's using the same CPU. I would guess, and it's not 100% confirmed, but I would imagine it has more RAM than the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, just to power the screen and other things that has going on in there. You get the Face ID. I don't know if that's enough of a selling point for some people though. But at the end of the day, again, I'd rather pay $200 more if I'm gonna get the iPhone 8 Plus anyway, and get the iPhone 10. Only for the reason being is the iPhone 8 in reality to me is an iPhone 7s. There's not enough selling point features in there, unless wireless charging is a huge selling point to you, for me to want to upgrade to like the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus if I'm coming from a previous phone. Maybe if I'm coming from a really old phone, then it makes sense. But if I'm coming from a 6 or 7, it's not a drastic enough change for me to want to upgrade to the iPhone 8, because the naming scheme matters, right? When people think S, they think it's a faster next iteration or incremental upgrade. When you think of jumping from like 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, you think a pretty drastic change in the iPhone. In this case, yes, you're getting glass back. Yes, you're getting the wireless charging and the improved A11 Bionic chip. But ultimately, I think the iPhone 8 is still an iPhone 7s, in my opinion, or iPhone 7s Plus. That's just me. If you're going to pay and pony up some more dollars, and I think it's better to go for that OLED Super Retina, edge-to-edge display, and get something a little bit different, right? And get something a little bit better. Yes, it's $1,000, and $1,000 by any stretch is no small chunk of change. But for me, anyways, as somebody who uses the phone a lot, and somebody who, my life and career kind of revolve around this, it makes more sense for me to upgrade to the iPhone 10, in my opinion. That's probably what I'm going to be doing, coming from the iPhone 7 Plus. It's nice, it's great, it's nothing new. We've seen these with Android phones. This is Apple's kind of attempt at it. I think a lot of this is also just going to be playing hand in hand with the new software that's coming out, things like iOS 11, that's going to make this better and the overall experience that much better. But again, I mean, it is nice, and there's a lot of other things that were mentioned at the event, right? Like the big play on AR and Apple's AR kit, and Apple's support for things like AR. I'm a fan of it, but that's not like a game changer for me. I think of the defining features that have been out every iPhone, or the things that kind of set it apart, whether it was like Siri, Touch ID, or what have you. And maybe Face ID is that. Maybe this full screen experience is that. But while it's great on the hardware perspective, I think more so we need to see more change in the software and how iOS works. I think as much as iOS has changed and improved, it's still very much the same as from when I first got my iPhone. The same set of icons, the same layout, the same home screen, with some incremental changes there. I want to see more of drastic changes on the software, and Apple taking more risks there, not just on the hardware end. And I think that's what would really change the overall iPhone experience for me personally, as somebody who's had an iPhone since the original iPhone, I think. So yeah, I mean, iPhone 10, it's iPhone X, whatever you want to call it. It's a great phone. It's a great step in the right direction. The future, as I call it, even though it's definitely been out there for a while, that technology. I just don't think with the iPhone 8 overall, there's a lot of selling point there for me. I don't think the wireless charging is enough. The glass back is nice. The design is nice. I don't think that's enough to captivate me to want to upgrade it, thinking from a user perspective. The iPhone 10 is probably, like, if I'm gonna do it at all, then I'm gonna go iPhone 10. But I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. I'd love to hear your opinions, where you guys sit on the fence with these new iPhones. Obviously, there's a lot of great competition nowadays, right? Like, it's not the same as it was years ago, where the iPhone was always the dominant 110%, the only phone out there that made sense to get. You have really great Android phones. You have really great Samsung phones that are out there, and other competition. So, yeah. Love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions. Leave it down in the comment below. And, of course, stay tuned for much more content on this Apple event and just content in general. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you in the next video.